Now, when you're coming up with a winning topic, there are three dimensions that you're going to need to optimize to really do well. And those are feasibility, your passion, and the debate itself. And the way I think about this in Convergence is really as three concentric circles. So let's start with the first one that's really quite important, and that is feasibility. So when I talk about feasibility, it's really just like it sounds. You need to be able to do this in a realistic amount of time. Now, I see so many students latch onto a topic that they're super excited about, can be a winning debate, but to really make inroads on it, it's a lifetime of work. It's not just one PhD, it's maybe two PhDs and a decade long of time investment and energy. For example, if you want to lead a randomized controlled trial or do a long panel cohort study following people over decades, you're just not going to get the results that you want. So your ideal situation is that this is going to be feasible in terms of time, but also feasible in terms of your skills. So if you're at the point now where you want to finish in a timely way, this might not be the right time for you to make that investment in tremendously new skills. Maybe you want to do some innovative social media text mining or scraping, but you don't know how to use a program like Python. You've got to make a tough call about whether you've got the time to pick up the skills, actually master them, and implement them at a high level. So think about feasibility in terms of something that you can really get done in the amount of time you have. Now, while balancing that feasibility, then there's another dimension that you've got to think about here that's tremendously important. And that really is, and I'm going to put this in red to capture it, and that is your passion for the topic. And don't neglect this. I mean, so many people I see get their topics and get what they want to focus on because their supervisor gave it to them. Somebody just handed it to them. Now, that can be well and good for your supervisor, but it may not be good for you. If you don't have that spring in your step, that you're excited to get out of bed in the morning to do this, then odds are you're just not going to be able to do it well day after day, especially when times get tough and hard for you. So you need to have that burning desire, that burning passion, so much so that we want to be that person who goes to a party or out with your friends and you're just so nerdy about your topic, you're so excited about it that's all you talk about. I mean, I want your friends to be like, oh no, there you're talking about your research project again. I mean, I remember there was a time when I was doing work on HIV and injection drug use, and let me tell you, at a party, that is a way to destroy the conversation. And I'm sure for a while, there's David again talking about HIV and injection drug use. But listen, you need that burning fire, that your eyes light up, that you get energy, you get fired up when you talk about what you want to do. So needs to be feasible, needs to have passion. And then the last critical area that you need to have, really critically important here, is this element of there needs to be a debate. You might be really passionate about, I don't know, mating patterns of certain sea turtles, but if only two people in the world care about that, it's not going to be a winning topic for you. It's not going to get you citations. It's not going to help you get funding. There's going to be few positions open up in the field. Getting the right topic at the right time that you can do and execute your passion about is hugely important. And so what I want you to think about these dimensions, imagine this behind you as like a dartboard where you could take many different ideas, throw your dart at the board and see where it lines up in sets of these areas, right? So like I said, an area that you have great, tremendous passion about, and is feasible, but there's no debate, like the sea turtle idea, you could, I'm sure you could do a fantastic piece of research, do a great job, but it's not going to get you the payoff. And likewise, often if you have an area that's really feasible, but there's a debate, but you don't have the passion, this is a high risk of just not finishing. And this does happen to a lot of students. They just don't finish the project they started. And, I'd estimate about 1 in 3, at least PhD students don't finish. And one of the reasons here is either lack of passion or this other area that's just the lack of feasibility. And that's really this cluster here. If it's not feasible, you've taken on more than you can chew. This sometimes happens if you haven't gotten good guidance along the way. Then you really are fighting an uphill battle and maybe have taken something on that you can't finish. And I do sometimes see supervisors have a big master decade-long project. They hand their students a small chunk of their project, which may be well and good for that supervisor who has a 10-year time horizon, but you don't have that. because of the things you need to do to finish, to execute, to publish now to get yourself ahead in your career. And you really need to watch out for that. Again, like I said, so many students get their topic just because it came from their supervisor. You need to make sure that this optimizes what's good for your career and not just theirs. Sometimes this can be extremely effective. I mean, one great value that you should get and hope to get, I'm going to use this rainbow pen here, from a supervisor is sometimes those supervisors are really great at pointing you towards a winning debate. This is often an advantage students get if they're at top institutions and programs, because if your supervisor is right at the heart of the debate, knows where the field is moving, he's going to be able to connect you to a topic that's going to pay handsomely for you, pay dividends, get you invited to conferences, get you on the fast track. Not everybody's blessed with that, but you do want to make sure that you are getting to debate. I'm going to come to a second how you can do that, but this is really a sweet spot right in here you want to get to. And if you can imagine this, I've drawn this here in 2 dimensions. Imagine there's a 3rd dimension that this is coming out, right? You want to imagine that you're in topics here in this sweet spot that's right at the bullseye, but really scores very highly on characteristics of passion and feasibility and debate. And if you do that, you've started to converge towards a sweet spot of a topic. Okay, using this framework, let me tell you a little bit, though, about some simple tweaks you may be able to make to take a topic that's maybe not, that you're passionate, feasible about, and kind of inch it over to where there's more debate. And so I want to talk to you about a second approach here. And one of that is to connect to adjacent debates. I personally did this in my PhD. I was looking at a terrible mortality crisis that happened in Eastern Europe after the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was a big debate in epidemiology. And at the same time, there was a big debate about how countries should make the transition from communism to capitalism in those societies. And what did I do? I connected those two debates together. And I knew both of them in and of themselves were winning debates. And by fusing them, I knew I was landing into a hot debate right away. Others, you can do this. You can imagine how if you connect your topic to something big where there's a debate like climate change, or say right now, almost anything, you connect to COVID, you're going to have something that's highly cited, that's going to have an impact. You're tapping into a ready-made debate and perhaps taking a different angle on it. So this idea of tapping into these adjacent debates can really be a winning strategy for you if you feel stuck. You kind of have a broad area to think about, but you don't know where the debate is. Well, think about creatively tapping into other big ongoing debates that perhaps what you're merging that with will give you a unique lens and a unique way of looking at things. The other point I want to come back here with you for a second, really has to do with how can you then, so many students come to me and they say, well, I'm just stuck. I see what you're saying about the adjacent debates. I can think of things, I can make a list for myself of things I'm passionate about. I can think of tools that are feasible, but I still don't feel really confident. I don't know if this area is right. I don't know if, I don't feel confident that there's going to be a debate here. Well, there's some other ways to test if there's a debate and to know if this is important. So one thing you can do with a debate, I mean, listen, if there's a debate that, say, your family members, your mother, I call it the grandmother test. If your grandma can understand why what you're doing is important, now you got to potentially be able to explain it in simple terms. Remember, as Da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. If you can pass this grandma test, that's often a good sign that there's broad relevance, there's broad impact and broad understanding that this is important. And if you know going in that there's going to be implications to your work, that's really going to help. In the same way with feasibility, if you know going in that you can see a light at the end of the tunnel of your work, you can see what the finish line looks like, that's important. If you have such a burning fuel and fire and passion for what you want to do, that spring in your step when you get out of bed in the morning, that's a good sign. So I've actually engineered a set of worksheets that have helped my students get amazing results to help you score in passion, feasibility, and debate to know whether you're on the right track with a series of tests like this grandma test, for which you get certain points, and really helps you see if you've engineered to land right in the sweet spot. But I would say of all these, many students haven't even really thought hard about passion or feasibility, just kind of stumble into things. I want you to take the time to really get this right. because so much of your success that you get will depend on what you choose now. And the truth is, many of you are making this choice now where you're relatively new in the field. You don't have the experience to know where the field's moving, what's important, what's not important. I mean, I remember I was a research assistant for a professor at Yale early on, and I had some research findings. And I had to ask him, like, is this an important finding? I couldn't gauge. It's like I didn't have my feet on solid ground to plant and look into a debate. And that's why I want to give you a couple other tools that can really help you on this third parameter, this debate. This is something I really would spend a lot of time and energy on. So another tool I call the op-ed test. And this is really, if you see something in the pages of, say, the science section of the New York Times, or you see people writing op-eds in the Wall Street Journal, you know there's a live conversation and a debate going on in public media about it. That's definitely going to be the case on climate change, on COVID and lockdowns, related areas, just to give you two current contemporary examples. You don't have to tether yourself to that, but that can be an idea. And especially what I like about op-eds, if you find something in the op-ed pages of the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, you almost know there's going to be a ready-made publication or topic, or some journal is going to want to air what your research says about that topic. The other thing that this often has, I find with a really good debate like this, that can be sometimes polarizing, people have very strongly entrenched views, is that it can really light a fire. It can really drag you, this good debate can go the other way and help you towards this area of making sure you've got passion for your topic. One thing I recommend to my students with great results is they find something that makes them angry, that they feel there's a real injustice here. And for me, this was about inequalities. I was really, really concerned about social inequality. And this is now, hang on a second, I accidentally made arrows. I didn't want to make an arrow. I was really passionate in my work about avoidable inequalities. They really upset me. I thought, of all inequality in the world, if people can't get access to education or their health's suffering, it's like the field's not fair. They can't even play with the others. They don't have a chance in life. And so certain kinds of inequalities really upset me and lit a fire. And a lot of you are doing research not because you want to make millions, although that definitely can happen, but because you really want to make a difference in the world. And so don't give that away. One of the biggest powers we have as researchers is our power to problematize. And so, is to take on, step back, look at these big problems and questions in the world, and we have that freedom to ask what's important. So don't give that away. And so coming back to this, these op-eds, I find actually can be a very useful tool to know there's a contemporary debate in which you can go deeper using your research skills, your empirical, your theoretical tools. And so look for that fire. The other thing I want to point out that is really critical for you and is going to help you a lot is forecasting the impact of your debate. So I've given you some tips and techniques here to hone in on these areas, to maybe self-reflect, to find your passion, to know if something's feasible, if something's right for you. But I want you to be able to get that objective evidence and this is the area that I've never really taught or shared before, to forecast what impact your debate's going to have. And I really picked this up because there are some tools out there that can take researchers' profiles and project, if they continue the pace they're on, what's going to be their impact, how are they going to evolve as researchers down the road. And some departments actually use these tools to forecast if they're making the right hire for assistant professors based on their past performance to go forward. And it's really the same principle. What we're going to do is we're going to mine existing databases, things like Google Scholar and Web of Science, search repositories where we can search to see, okay, what's been the past performance of a research area? And that's going to be our best correlate, our best predictor of how it's going to do in the future. So what you can do is you can take your topics that you think have kind of hit in the sweet spot here and apply them over to the metrics. So let me switch over the browser and take us there. Okay, so let me tell you about one of the students I've been working with recently. He wanted to look at a debate around universal health coverage and poverty. And so one of the ways to start, he's really passionate about the topic. He's from Mexico, and he's really concerned about people who don't have healthcare access. So one way to start mining this to make sure you're on the right track is simply to go, if I spell correctly, in Google Scholar. Google Scholar, what's available in your topic. And here we can begin to see a little bit of the lineup of what's been published on the topic, and already can see, okay, there's commentaries here. That's good. Commentaries, this is more a commentary piece and less a research piece. Here's some case studies on universal health coverage. But I can already start to see something coming out of here, that the papers that look a little bit more like research studies are actually on out-of-pocket payments. And so what I think we can then begin to see is actually, let's move the debate to where the keywords are in this area and figure out the spaces. Now, already what I see here is very promising. If you look at the citations here, this very clearly, this is hitting an area that's of live debate. Let's just see if we can move to where more of the research studies are being located at. And this is a nice sign. Here we can see that somebody studied catastrophic payments. These are payments that where healthcare is unaffordable for patients. Don't worry too much about the subject area. It's just an example of how you can hone in the sweet spot. So if we can tweak this and mine our keywords, not even really knowing a whole lot about the topic, we can start to see change that keyword. Now we can see things that look a little bit more like research studies and less commentaries. And look, they're still getting huge citations. And I would encourage all of you to do this because this is going to help you hone in on a sweet spot of a topic. I had a student, for example, who also is attempting to join some adjacent debates in an area, and we did the same mining approach to really ensure we were on the sweet spot. So this is my student Mohammed. He was looking at doing a systematic review in a space of, he was very interested in access to care for migrants. And so we began to look at COVID and specifically access for migrants. And one thing we always wanted to do first was to check if there's already a systematic review on the topic. And again, it helps to spell correctly. And what we found is that there wasn't really a systematic review yet done. It's also, this forecasting impact is very important. I've had so many students start on a topic only halfway through to go quiet. And I go back and ask, well, what happened? You were so passionate about this topic that you were going to turn it around very quickly. So yeah, I found a paper that already did what I wanted to do. That's especially a risk. The more hot your debate is, the more risk you have of getting scooped. And it happens surprisingly a lot. If you don't have a risk of getting scooped, it can be a sign that you don't have a big debate in your area. Okay, but what we can see here is definitely some calls to action, commentary pieces again, but no systematic reviews. So that kind of told me that there's definitely kind of an open goal, an open space to find a good topic. And I really like going for that, especially for you in grad school, trying to get on the fast track, going for that low-hanging fruit. When I was on the tenure track at Harvard, I had a professor say, well, you know, David, all you do is go for low-hanging fruit. I'm like, yeah, because you guys just let it rot on the vine. And that's really important because you get publications, you cash in on them later, get grants, funding, advance to other positions. I have nothing wrong. I love low-hanging fruit, especially when, you know, the early successes beget more successes, something called the Matthew effect in science. I don't want to digress too far. But we looked here, COVID access, migrant, and we found, look, lots of papers are getting cites. There's calls to action here. And that this would definitely be a winning topic. We can take from this and forecast that there's just going to be very good citations. And it's important to do this not least because the median number of citations for papers published in 2020 and 2021 is 0. What that's telling you is at least half of all papers that get published get no citations at all in the first couple of years. And really, do you want to do work that no one is picking up? You have to think about this, why you're in this field and what you want to do. So take this time, take these steps to optimize your impact. Forecast your impact is very simple to do by mining the right keywords, and often with a few simple tweaks, you get this right anyway, and make sure you've got a title that's going to get, at the very least, picked up more and get more citations down the road. These few simple steps can really change not just your topic, but the entire trajectory of your research career.